This is the reading quiz, lecture 629 through 637, starting with imperialism. And remember, we're jumping back in time a little bit. We talked about progressivism and Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson, and now we're jumping back in time to go to back to a little bit before McKinley and build up our imperialism, and then we will end with those progressive presidents and eventually World War I. So we had a long established tradition of expansion. I mean, we movement west across the continent. But that is gone now. We don't have any place else to go. So directly or indirectly through acquisition or colonial possessions and the exportation of our things, our ideals, our institutions, we will keep expanding overseas. At this point in the world, a lot of countries are expanding through imperialism. Imperialism, the policy of practicing, is the policy and practice of exploiting other nations and peoples for the benefit of the imperial power or the mother country, either directly through military occupation or indirectly through economic domination. Scholars, authors, religious people, pretty much everybody from every walk of life is against us being imperialistic. And there are some that say we should. Social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. We're the fittest, we should take over. We're better than black people. We're better than the natives. Again, not my words, but what people were thinking at the time. Christianity, let's use that as we've talked about with the Spanish, with God, gold, and glory, and the French, faith, fish, and fur. Let's do that. Let's use God as justification, and let's spread Christianity. And then the big one is manifest destiny, which is God's given us the right to have all this stuff. We should have it. Here are some missionaries working with the Chinese, so we're spreading out throughout the world. All right, so Alfred T. Mahan becomes the dominant figure in how we should run our country. He stressed a strong navy. He says, with a strong navy, we'll be able to expand territory and economically across the world. He says with a strong navy, we can set up naval bases around the world so we can be anywhere at a moment's notice, but we need to have the strongest navy in the world. Here are reasons or beliefs for imperialism, okay? And you should know these ideas for the quiz and the test. Another rationale for expansion was to expand and protect American trade. We have a depression that happens in the 1890s, and in order to get us out of the depression or to help us not be in a depression again, we should strengthen our foreign trade so that it would be harder for a depression to hit in America. So our first steps were done by William Seward. Okay. And William Seward was the Secretary of State all the way back through Lincoln. He had an assassination attempt on the night Lincoln was assassinated. And then also James G. Blaine, who called for a larger presence in world affairs. Seward bought Alaska. Everybody called it Seward's folly. Like, what are you doing? That's farther away, closer to Russia than it is the United States. What are you thinking? Well, little did they know of all the oil that we had there. We bought it for $6 point some odd million, and of course it ends up giving us back that times $1 billion. Also approved for the occupation of Midway and pushed for American trade on Japan. Blaine was a little different. Blaine helped establish the Pan-American Union, and he thought Hawaii was an indispensable part of the American system. We have to have Hawaii. We have to have a presence in the Pacific. Now, Seward says Midway needs to be that place, but Midway's not big enough. Hawaii, much bigger than Midway. Okay? And so you can see here's Midway, here's Hawaii, Okay, of course, Alaska up here. Treaties integrating the Hawaiian Islands into the American economy gave the U.S. control over Pearl Harbor. All right, so let's jump back. Whoa. Okay. We have been going over there to Hawaii for a long period of time. When we figure out that sugarcane grows there really well, Americans move there. Within 15 years of us, with missionaries being there, there are more Americans there than native Hawaiians. That being said, we do not want to annex Hawaii. Grover Cleveland's like, no, we're not going to do that. And the sugar growers want us to annex them because they have to pay a tariff every time it comes in. Every time they send sugar in, they have to pay a tariff. Well, Queen Liliuokalani, who is the Queen of Hawaii, Queen Lily for short, does everything to appease the Americans. They even give us Pearl Harbor and allow us to have that, and we make that our naval base in the Pacific. In 1893, there's an attempt to take over Hawaii, actually they are successful in taking it over eventually. The first territorial governor of Hawaii was Sanford B. Dole. Dole pineapple. Pineapple grows like crazy in Hawaii. And so it becomes a very important step for us to get Hawaii. Okay, because remember, Mahan said that you have to have a strong navy, and he has the idea of having this 2-ocean navy. And he is going to be able to stress this enough, and he writes a book, The Influence of Sea Power on History, that they still read in the Naval Academy. And it allows for eventually for Teddy Roosevelt to revolutionize completely our Navy. Now, we build up to a time where we want to, quote unquote, flex our muscles a little bit. And we have this happen. Okay, hang on here. We have this happen in Chile and Venezuela. Tense relations between the United States and Chile arose over our support of a failed revolution were heightened over an incident with drunken sailors. Our sailors come in and they just act a fool in Chile. Of course, coming into port, most sailors been on a ship, don't have access to alcohol. When they do, things happen, things change. Right? And then the big one. In 1895, there's a boundary dispute between Great Britain and Venezuela, which leads to intervention by Grover Cleveland. But what we kind of do is sit back and see if they're going to follow the Monroe Doctrine or not, which means, remember, if you remember back to the Monroe Doctrine, we are the police force of the New World. You guys stay out of it. We'll take care of it. So there is a dispute between British-owned British Guiana and Venezuela. And so we wait to see what Britain's going to do. Are they going to come in, step in, and take out Venezuela and, disregard the Monroe Doctrine? No, they're not. They actually wait for us. They let us intermediate, and Grover Cleveland is able to arbitrate for Britain, and it asserts our dominance and power in the New World, Latin America, South America, and it angers especially the Venezuelans. So we are, for lack of a better term, putting our adult clothes on here and joining in with the world as an adult. It's the first time we're really being able to sit at the adult table and have conversations rather than be shuttered off to the kids' table. This is the ending of the lecture, 629 through 637.